Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in this world today, and welcome to the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries, where we will go through the scriptures, bringing the scriptures to life, and showing you the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob's people, and the God of Israel himself. Today, our topic is, we have located God and his chosen people. Did you know that? We have located the God of Israel and his chosen people. But before I get there, let me just read this one thing from Psalms. How long wilt thou forget me, O Lord, forever? How long wilt thou hide thy face from me? How long shall I take counsel in my soul, having sorrow in my heart daily? How long shall mine enemies be exalted over me? Consider and hear me, O Lord my God. Lighten mine eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. Lest mine enemies say, I have prevailed against him, and those that trouble me rejoice when I am moved. But I have trusted in thy mercy. My heart shall rejoice in thy salvation. I will sing unto the Lord, because he has dealt bountifully with me. Selah and Selah, amen. Wow, this is just such a wonderful day. It gives me great pleasure to be here today, especially dealing with the subject that we are dealing with. The heart of Egypt shall melt. Do you know what that means? That is just such a powerful statement. And I know some of you are talking, probably thinking to yourself, Egypt, what do you mean the heart of Egypt shall melt? Have you not heard of the prophecies of old? Have you not heard of the great God, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob? We are talking about the precept of freedom, coming from the lie to the truth. Let's go to Exodus to start this off. I want to show you the power and the might of our God, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Now, this is nothing to be taken lightly, because he is truly a great God. He is truly a magnificent God. And what a lot of people do not understand, maybe even some of you, and hopefully today, by the end, you will get a better understanding and appreciation of the God of Israel and his people. But I want to show you, first of all, who the God of Israel is, who his chosen people are, and then we'll talk about that meltdown that's expected. So first of all, let's go to Exodus. I want to show you, this is the God that we're dealing with. Exodus 14. From verse 15. And the Lord said unto Moses, Wherefore criest thou unto me? Speak unto the children of Israel, that they go forward. Israel, always going forward. But lift thou up thy rod, and stretch out thine hand over the sea, and divide it. So many of you've heard about the story of Moses leading the children of Israel out of the land of their captivity. You've heard about this. You heard about the relationship between Moses and the God of Israel, and how he communicated with him after he spent time in the wilderness. You've heard about this story. Now they're coming to the pinnacle. This is when they are going forward. They're going to be leaving Egypt. And the children of Israel shall go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. And I beheld, I will harden the heart of the Egyptians, and they shall follow them, and I will get me honor upon Pharaoh, and upon all his hosts, upon his chariots, and upon his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know, this is it, the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I have gotten me honor upon Pharaoh, upon his chariots, and upon his horsemen. The world shall know who the God of Israel is, and he shall know, the world shall know, not only who the God of Israel is, but through the might of his children, the chosen few. And I know it sounds What do you mean, the chosen few? You must be saying to yourself, who are the few? But there are so many examples in this book of the might of the God of Israel. And when I was looking at this title, this subject, I was thinking to myself, how can I best express the might and the power of this God, this great God of Israel that we are dealing with? And I thought to myself, you know what? There's one of my favorite stories. Let me see if I can find it here. Here we go. Let's turn to the book of Judges for this one. I want to take you somewhere else later because I think it's important to identify who the children of Israel is. But first of all, we know that in Exodus 13 or 3:13, we found the God of Israel. We found his name. And that goes back to many of our stories. We talk about the God of Israel so many times. And we have noticed throughout our studies, throughout our teachings, throughout our learning, that there are many people that do not call upon his name. Whether they can or not, that's a question that we often ask ourselves. But there are very few people that have the know-how or the ability or the willingness or have been chosen to call upon his name, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. That in itself is such a powerful name. Why? Simple. Because every time you call upon this God's name, you are taking the scriptures right from the beginning. You are talking about Abraham, and you are talking about all of his journey and all of his struggles and all of his successes. And you are talking about Isaac and everything that Isaac had to go through. And you are talking about Jacob and Jacob's story and Jacob's, even what happened with Jacob, his name being changed to Israel. So every time you mention that name, you're calling upon the power of the God of Israel, because you see everything that he has done for his children. And that's why he gave Moses this particular name to call him by. He gave him this name. But you know what? The God of Israel, he is such an amazing God, because when you read these scriptures, you realize that he's not dealing with Israel because, I don't know, we're the best, even though we are, but that's beside the point. But he's dealing with Israel because he looked upon us and saw that we were a peculiar treasure. We were the fewest of all the nations. And you look at the world today, and you look at Israel today, those that don't even know that they're Israel. Look how unique they are. Look how interesting they are. They're so interesting that the whole world wants to follow. Jacob sings a song and everybody wants to sing the same type of song. Jacob dresses in a certain way and everybody else wants to dress that way. It doesn't matter who you are, from the Americas to North Korea to South Korea to India, everywhere. You got pop bands that rise up. I've seen people that doesn't have hair like me. Their hair's bone straight, but they are rocking locks. It's crazy. Anything that Jacob does, the rest of the world wants to do. So tell me, isn't there something peculiar about that? Even though nobody claims to want to recognize us. They don't want to recognize us. They don't believe us when we tell them who we truly are. They always try to push us down. But yet still, they want to be like us. Very interesting. You see the plastic surgery. Oh my goodness, that's just getting out of hand. The bottoms and the lips. It's like, whoa. Anyways, you know what? Whatever works. But let me just tell you about our people. Okay, I just chose Judges, and I chose Gideon because I think Gideon is a beautiful representation of what our God, the God of Israel, has done. Now, for all you out there, just remember, first and foremost, to share, to like, to make a comment. And if you do want further information, remember there is a form below that you can fill out and somebody will contact you and get back to you. But that's very important. So please do that now before we proceed, because now we're going to get into some serious stuff here, and it may be a bit much, but later on, we have the honor and privilege of having our chairman of the Executive Council, our very own priest, Elder Andor, who will be coming up. And I'm so excited because he's just, wow, he is just fantastic. And he's going to weave all of this together and bring you the truth of the matter. But first of all, I'm just going to set up the stage for him. As Elder Michael would say, I'm going to set the scene. I'm going to show you who the God of Israel is and who his people is. Okay, so let's start with Judges. We're going to go to Judges 7. And we're going to start from 4. And I'm going to be skipping through some of these scriptures because there's a lot to cover. And, we're going to have fun, okay? So just put the fires in the chat because we're going to have fun today, right? Okay, let's go. So Judges 7 from 4. Let's from 4 to 7. And it says here, and the Lord said unto Gideon. So just to give you a little bit of background. Now, Gideon, he's a general, okay? And an angel came to him and he pretty much was in disbelief. It's like, yeah, right, yeah, who are you? Prove it to me. So the angel proved to him, that he was indeed sent from the God of Israel. And, read that. That to me was just such a powerful scenario, It's like it rained on one day and everything else was dry. And then the next day, that one spot was wet and then, the other way around. Everything else was wet and that one spot was dry. So it was really quite remarkable just to prove to Gideon who he was actually dealing with. And it's important because today we have forgotten our God in the general sense. And because of that, the rest of the world has forgotten who our God was. Do you know that once upon a time that people were actually identified by the God that they served? Did you know that? Do you know that there was once upon a time, even if you look at the story of a really good story to look at is the story of Jonah. When he was on the boat and the boat was rocking like crazy and, everybody's praying to their God. And they actually said, every man should pray to their God. And then Jonah came up, and it's like, oh yeah, maybe it's because of me. And they were turning to him and they was like, well, you should pray to your God for us. So they understood this. Everybody understood this, right? So I just thought that's a really interesting point. At the end of the day, it's about identity, it's about culture, it's about understanding who you are. And I would ask you, put it in the chat, who are you? Who are you? Who do you serve? Are you an Israelite? Are you something other? Let us know. Okay, so from 4. And the Lord said unto Gideon, the people are yet too many. So, so I should probably point this out as well. The God of Israel is a remarkable God. He is absolutely remarkable. But what he also wants to show you is that, when you look at what happened in Egypt, the God of Israel showing his might. He defeated Pharaoh and all his host, by a mighty right hand. He had Moses lead the people over the land on dry ground. You have to understand and appreciate the God of Israel, because even after that wonderful time took place, everybody turned around and they even said, you know what, I don't want to deal with those people because of their God. Have you heard what their God did? Have you heard about those stories? This is the same God that we're dealing with. And he understands the mind of men. He understands the mind of men to the point whereby he's saying, you know what, I don't want a whole bunch of people in this particular incident, right? When Israel's going up against the Midianites, I don't want a whole bunch of people. I just want a few people. I just want a few people to deal with this situation. Because one, you don't want the God of Israel to be lost in that moment. You know, for people to turn around and say, well, did you see me? Did you see how many people I took down? Did you see what I did? Did you see us? You know, no. We're dealing with the God of Israel. And you know what? I think, I hope I had this one set up here. But you will see how the people start to dwindle down so that the God of Israel can truly show his might. But we'll see. Okay, let's go to Judges 7, 4-7. I'm going to stop talking. Don't worry. I'm going to read now. And the Lord said unto Gideon, the people are yet too many. Bring them down unto the water, and I will try them for thee there. And it shall be that of whom I say unto thee, this shall go with thee, the same shall go with thee. And of whomsoever I say unto thee, this shall not go with thee, the same shall not go. So he brought the people unto the water, and the Lord said unto Gideon, everyone that lappeth of the water with his tongue as a dog lappeth, he shalt thou set by himself. Likewise, everyone that boweth down upon his knees to drink. Okay, so as you know, I said it many times, I love visuals. So imagine, okay, here is the scene. A whole bunch of men, I don't know, maybe 10,000, I don't know the number. And they're all coming down, and the God of Israel was like, you know what? That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. Let's kind of dwindle that number down a bit. So he's saying to him, okay, this is going to be the test. Well, I think first of all, he sent home those that wanted to be, that wanted to go home. So they were already gone. So now this is another test. It's like, okay, too many people, we need to get rid of some. Okay, let's do this. Those that go down to the edge of the river and they start lapping like a dog, set them to one side, please. And those that go down on their hands and their knees and they, probably looking around, just drinking like this, those set to another side. Let's see what he does. And the number of them that lapped, putteth their hand to their mouth, were 300 men. But all the rest of the people bowed down upon their knees to drink water. And the Lord said unto Gideon, by the 300 men that lapped will I save you, and deliver the Midianites into thine hand, and let all the other people go, every man unto his place. Wasn't that interesting? By these 300, I know you've got that picture of, the Greeks and, what's his name, Leonidas, and taking down the 300 men, and they all got those, chiseled abs, that was airbrushed and looked so good. Yeah, that's what you're thinking of, aren't you? I can see that. Yeah, but you know what? Where did they get this story from? Where did that come from? Mind you, their 300 never made it. Our God's 300, you'll see the difference. There was a big difference. They needed more men, right? But our God, he knew what he was doing. So these guys weren't chiseled. No, they weren't chiseled. But the God of Israel chose them, those that lapped. He chose those guys. Okay, so where was it? Okay. Right. And the number of them that lapped put their hands to their mouth were 300 men. But all the rest of the people bowed down upon their knees to drink water. And the Lord said unto Gideon, by the 300 that lapped will I save you, and deliver the Midianites unto thine hand, and let all the others go, every man unto his place. So basically, he's taking the worst of the worst. These are the guys that's not paying attention. They're just doing what they're doing. They're just drinking up the water, whatever, but they're not paying attention. These are the ones that he wants. The ones, the non-professionals, not the big generals or the captains or what have you. No, these are the, the guy that will carry the water probably, These are the best of the best. So we understand that. So this is that situation. We're going to jump down to 12. And this is, so we know what the God of Israel has set up. He's spoken to Gideon. He's got 300 men, okay? Now look at verse 12. And the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the children of the east lay along the valley like grasshoppers. Could you picture that? They lay there like grasshoppers. Numbers, you can't number them. They were so many. 300 grasshoppers for a multitude. And their camels, now listen to this. Their camels were without number. You could not number them out. There were so many. Could you imagine just like, whoa, your eyes, as far as the eye can see, just people and camels, and these are the people you're going up against. That is an incredible scene. Incredible. And as the sand, okay, where was I? Like grasshoppers for a multitude, and their camels were without number, as the sand by the seaside for multitude. And when Gideon was come, behold, there was a man that told a dream unto his fellows and said, Behold, I dreamed a dream, and lo, a cake of barley bread tumbled into the host of the Midians, and came unto a tent, and smote it, and it fell, and overturned it, and the tent lay along. And his fellows answered and said, This is nothing else save the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. For into his hand has God delivered Midian and all his host. Selah and Selah, amen. Right? Put the fires in the chat. You see that? This is a man of Israel. There's nothing else that could explain that dream except it be a man of God, a man of Israel. And the Midianites have been delivered. It's already been done, right? It's already been written, spoken, full stop. Yes, exactly. This is our God that you're dealing with. This is the greatest God that you're dealing with. The God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Know it, people. Know it. So that you can tell this story to your friends, your family, your children, whoever needs to hear it. Because there's going to come a time, there's going to come a reckoning. And you want to be on the side that says, I know about this. I know about this God. And I am one of these people. Okay, but let's continue. Okay, let's go to 19. So Gideon and the 100 men that were with him came unto the outside of the camp in the beginning of the middle watch, and they had put newly set the watch, and they blew the trumpets. I love the trumpets. You know, we're going to go into this later on in the year, but the trumpets, this is a sign. This is a serious sign, right? This is a serious sign that they are setting up to have the God of Israel fight for them, because this is what the God of Israel does. He doesn't fight with Israel, he fights for Israel. Remember that. And break the pitchers and were in their hands, that were in their hands. And the three companies blew the trumpets and brake the pitchers, and held the lamps in their left hands and the trumpet in their right hands to blow withal. And they cried, and the sword of the Lord and of Gideon. Okay, so again, you got to picture this. Picture this. There's the tent. There's the enemy. Remember, without number, they look like locusts. You look and it's terrifying. It's terrifying. You see them and you're thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, how am I going to get through this? It is petrifying. All of these men, and they're probably men of renown. You know, these are warriors, and there are many. and you're 300. You're a few people. And you're going against this company. And Gideon, being the original man of valor, Gideon being the original, he set them out in companies of 3. So 100 there, 100 there, 100 there. And he says, at a given time, you're going to blow the trumpets, you're going to break the pitcher in your hand, and you're going to call out. You're going to call out for the God of Israel. You're going to call out as loud as you can. Just 300. Can you imagine that? This had to work. It had to work. Okay. So, where is it? Blow the trumpets and break the pitchers, and held the lamps in their left hands, and the trumpets in their right hands to blow withal. And they cried, the sword of the Lord and of Gideon. And they stood every man in his place round about the camp. And all the host, remember the grasshoppers, all the host ran and cried and fled. They were afraid. I wish I could just get an actual picture of this actually happening, because to me it's just so incredible. You got Gideon's men, just 300 guys, just standing around. These are the chosen, and the God of Israel is like, you know what? I've got this one. Just follow my lead. And they're all standing there, just doing their bit, breaking the pitchers, blowing their trumpets, and making noise. Calling upon the God of Israel. That's all they had to do. And, and plus they had the lamps in their hands. And you imagine these guys, the enemy, the Midianites and the Midianites and the rest of the enemy, they're in their camp and they're looking around, and all they can see is light and noise. And they're hearing noise, right? That's all they can see and hear. And it's like, oh my God, the Israelites are coming. And they scalper, they ran, they just did a run. It's like, gotta get out of there. Yep, that's what they did. I'll read that again. That's from 21. And they stood every man in his place round about the camp. And all the host ran and cried and fled. And the 300 blew the trumpet. And the Lord set every man's sword against his fellow, even throughout all the host. And the host fled to Beth Shittim and Zeruah and the borders of Abel Meholah and Tabbath. And the men of Israel gathered themselves together out of Naphtali and out of Asher and all of Manasseh, and pursued after the Midianites. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? How so few made the masses crumble. We've read many times of these types of stories, and you tend to wonder, is it possible to happen today? The God of Israel, we understand that he created all things. He created the heavens and he created the earth. He created man. He created all things. Then he chose a people to call his own. And then unfortunately, his people were terrible, always running after other gods, always looking to see what the grass is greener on the other side, always like the flashy stuff, always going away, doing something else. God of Israel got tired of that. He could have easily said, you know what? You have to worship me, you have to worship me, you have to. No, it came to a point whereby it's like, you know what? I'm not even going to call you all to worship me like back in the days when you all had to do that. I'm not going to even do that. Now it's about your heart. It's about your heart. Because in a heartbeat, he can just, and everybody can be worshiping him. Everybody, the whole earth, the whole world could be bowing down and worshiping the God right now. The whole world could do that. But no. What fun is that? Where does that take you? To me, it's like you're doing it because you have to. To me, that's just tragic. You're doing something because you have to. No. How about someone that's zealous, that's the fire's burning. And they want to do the things for the God of Israel. They want to go above and beyond. Those are the people that the God of Israel favors. David, goodness, he was the pinnacle of that. His heart was so for the God of Israel. I will do anything, everything for the God of Israel. Anything, everything. This is what the God of Israel loves. It's like, you imagine David, he's standing there during a time when Israel's fighting against the Philistine. The God of Israel's like, I can't let him down. He believes in me. I can't let him down. Look at him. He's gone and boasting to all these guys. I can't let him down. Oh my goodness. He's gone out there. Well, yeah, you're going to fight? Okay. I'm going to take you on. My God's going to destroy all of you, and he's going to feed your body to the carcass, and you're going to be garbage, and you're going to be this. And the Philistines are like, look at this joke. Look at this guy. He's a joke. He thinks he can ruin me. He thinks he can fight. Look, he probably just came out of nappies, diapers, whatever. Look, it's like, this is an insult. I'm going to put this little boy out of his misery, and I'm going to show the rest of them. But the God of Israel was like, no. I'm going to make use of that little boy. I'm going to take that little boy and make use of him. And we know the story today. As before, as after, the God of Israel took the fewest, took the weakest, took the smallest, and conquered. This is the God that we're dealing with. This is the God that we are dealing with. Dealing with the matters of the heart, those that are circumcised of the heart, that wants to serve this God, but also dealing with those that are of the covenant. This is who he's dealing with. And I know you're saying, well, you know what? I'm a good person. I'm in this. I'm a this. And no. God of Israel has specific people that he has chosen for himself. In addition to that, he has given an allowance for all those that would like to join this family. And we're going to go right there. We're going to go to Romans, because I think it's important to actually see that in action. So let's go to Romans 11. Now, people might think, oh, you guys are always talking about, oh, you're special and you're God's chosen people. Listen, it's written in here. It's written in here. We didn't make it up. We didn't sit around a table and it's like, okay, yes, we're, the superior race and whatever. No. We're reading what's written in this book. And it clearly says that the God of Israel, he chose a people, he surnamed them, he gave them his commandments, his laws, his statutes, his judgments, his precepts. He did this, okay? He called them his own, and he gave them, or they that truly believed, maintained the faith. And that faith was given through grace to the Gentiles. But I want to show you, because I know from previous studies, we do understand that there are a few people that actually believe that they are Gentiles. But that's not the case. Honestly, we've spoken about this before. You go back in the book right from the beginning, it tells you exactly who are the Gentiles. But let's go to Romans 11, just have a quick read through some of these scriptures here. And Romans 11, we're talking about Paul here. And Paul is, as he professed himself, the apostles of the Gentiles. But if anybody knows, Paul was actually one that used to persecute the Israelites, his own brethren, because Paul too was an Israelite. But let's continue. Say then, has God cast away his people? God forbid. God forbid. Cast away his people? Are you nuts? Are you crazy? This is no, absolutely not. For I also am an Israelite. And you know what? I could imagine Paul doing this so earnestly, because remember, he's coming out of a very dark place where he was killing his own brethren. Now he's like, you know what? Strip me bare. I'm an Israelite. I'm an Israelite like you guys, For I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. Breaking it down so that we understand, he's not from the tribe of Judah, he's from the tribe of Benjamin. He is an Israelite, a seed of Abraham. Okay? God has not cast away his people, which he foreknew, which he knew a long time ago. Wot ye not what the scripture saith of Elias, how he maketh intercession to God against Israel, saying, this is the time, when during the time of King Ahab, when Elias, he's by himself. We know him as Elijah back then, but he was by himself. He was out there being persecuted by Ahab and his prophets. Lord, they have killed thy prophets and digged down thine altars, and I am left alone, and they seek my life. But what saith the answer of God unto him? I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal. Could you imagine that? 7,000 men. They would always be a remnant. And we have to make sure that we understand this. There would always be a remnant in Israel. There would always be an Israelite turning to the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And, it's quite incredible because they say, the truth, you can't hide the truth. And we see that today. We have our elder Shadrach, he was given this truth. And he, in turn, he didn't learn this from his parents or his family. But you can't bury the truth. The truth will always rise up. It will always breathe. It would always come out and come up. And we see it. The resurrection of Israel is happening. Are you part of that? Remember what the God of Israel did before. Are you a part of that? Ask yourself, do you want to be a part of that? Some people are happy being on the other side. To each his own. But we had our elder Shadrach. He's come with this message. He's come with this message, destroying the lie and bringing forth the truth. And I'm telling you now, nobody can argue the things that have been discovered over the last 40 odd years from our elder Shadrach. Nobody can argue it. Nobody can argue. We know who the Christ is. We understand what was drank during the time of Passover. It wasn't wine. We understand how to pray to our God. We know which direction to turn to, not the east towards Jerusalem. We understand all of this. It's rudimentary. And the thing is, it's all written here. That is the most incredible thing. For hundreds of years, we've been doing the wrong thing. Now we have an opportunity. But remember, there is always only a remnant. Are you part of that remnant? Are you of that few, the chosen few? Ask yourself. Yes, okay. So this is Elias. He says that, Lord, they have killed thy prophets and digged down thine altars, and I am left alone, and they seek my life. But what saith the answer of God unto him? I have reserved unto myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knees to the image of Baal. Even so then, at this present time, there is a remnant according to the election of grace. The election of grace. Israel saved by faith, the Gentiles through grace. They have to come to the Israelites. So even at this time, and even today, there is a remnant that teaches because of our faith. And if you are out there and you know that you're a Gentile or any other nation, you have an opportunity. You come to the Israelite. And I'm going to show you this because you might think, oh, you're saying that thing and you guys are all this and all that. But I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you through our forefathers what they have done. And if by grace, then it is no more of works. Otherwise, grace is no more grace. But if of works, then it is no more grace. Otherwise, work is no more works. So it's either faith or grace. It's not both. It's faith or grace, right? And that's exactly what it's saying. Faith by works, because without works, there's no faith, right? And then there's grace. What then Israel has not obtained, that which he seeketh for, but the election has obtained it, and the rest were blinded, according as it is written. And I'm just going to go through this, but we'll go back to some of these points. I just want to give you the feel of what's happening here. According as it is written, God has given them the spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear, unto this day. So you're looking at people like me, the descendants of slaves. They can't understand what's here. Even though they have ears and eyes and they can read, they read and they are seeing Yeshua and Yahweh, and they're seeing something that is not here. So they have eyes and they can't see the God of Israel's name. They're seeing something completely different. It doesn't matter how many times you tell them, they are still following that old way, that strange way, because it's not even familiar to us. It's a strange way. So you're seeing what happened then is still happening now, but it's even more prevalent. Because when you have the eyes to see, it is really diabolical what you're looking at. You're looking out there and you're thinking to yourself, this is just so simple. This is wonderful. This is beautiful. Everybody should know, the whole world should know this. But no, the battle is fierce out there. The battle is fierce because they have eyes and they don't see, and they have ears and they can't hear. That's what we're up against. Just how the God of Israel hardened Pharaoh's heart. He hardened Pharaoh's heart. Now that really is not a good place to be. And David saith, let their table be made a snare, and a trap, and a stumbling block, and a recompense unto them. Let their eyes be darkened, that they may not see, and bow down their back always. I say then, this is 11. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? God forbid that Israel shall fall and be completely destroyed. God forbid. But rather, through their fall, salvation is come unto the Gentiles. That's a shocking revelation. That salvation is come unto the Gentiles because Israel has fallen. But it's not so. It's not so. It is to provoke them to jealousy. Now, if the fall of them, and we know that all the nations of the world have built their nation, especially Egypt, the Egypt of today. And we identify the Egypt of today as the Americas, North America. We know that Egypt has built their riches, their foundation on the back of Israel, on the fallen. If they can do that and be so powerful, now if the fall of them be the riches of the world, and the diminishing of them the riches of the Gentiles, how much more their fullness? Can I get an amen? Can I get some 5 signs? Can I get some 7s? If, guys, Israel's taken into captivity, brought to our knees, we bled, our skins peeled away from our bodies. We were in the belly of ships. We were throwing up on top of each other. We were in the most diabolical state any human being has ever been in. We were treated like garbage. We were chucked over the boats or over the ships like nothing, like our life is nothing. Chucked over and drowned. We were taken to a place that we never knew, that our parents, our forefathers never knew. We were led to toil day and night, to dig the soil with our bare hands, to pick cottons till we bled. As soon as we give birth, we were back on the fields. We were in the worst shape ever. And the world, as we know it today, became rich because of that. If at our lowest esteem, the world has got what it's gotten, how much more if they allowed us to be who we are? If they allowed us to be a great people again, like we used to be, like our forefathers, like King Solomon, how much more fruitful would the rest of the world be if they allowed us to claim back our identity? If we allowed ourselves to claim back our identity, let alone them, if we allowed ourselves take back what is rightfully ours, our name, if we took that back and we called upon the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, don't you think the rest of the world will benefit? Every time they try to suppress us and hurt us and punish us, they also hurt themselves. They do. They do. Okay, for the most part, they have gained their riches, but they also hurt themselves. In any battle, people are caught in a crossfire. Innocent victims are caught in a crossfire. Likewise on their side as well. They will get caught in that crossfire. But if they allow us to be the fullness of us, they too can be even better, even greater. But this is the words that is being said here, hundreds, thousands of years ago. But today it manifests itself because we've just gone through that reckoning. We've gone through that downtroddenness, and it's a time for us to rise. It is a time, but we have to realize that time. Okay, so yes. I say then, have they stumbled that they should fall? God forbid, but rather through their fall, salvation is come unto the Gentiles. For to provoke them to jealousy. Now if the fall of them be the riches of the world, and the diminishing of them the riches of the Gentiles, how much more their fullness? For I speak to you Gentiles, inasmuch as Paul is saying of himself, I am the apostle of the Gentiles. I magnify mine office. So remember, this was his punishment. This was his job. You went and you persecuted your brothers. Now you go and you convince everybody else of the God of Israel, even his son, the Christ. If by any means I may provoke to emulation them which are my flesh, and might save some of them. For if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, what shall the receiving of them be but life from the dead? This is where you get the grace. Right? Grace is not for Israel. Israel, you got to do this by faith. You have to. I mean, if you don't believe, then you're not going to be able to teach anyone. You're not going to be able to help anyone. If you can't say the God of Israel's name, you can't help anybody. If you're calling upon someone else, you're not going to be able to help. If you're calling yourself a Christian or a Gentile, then you're definitely lost. Right? You're completely lost. But if you're Israel, you believe in the resurrection. You believe in the God of Israel. You know what he's done. You know his name. You understand the purpose of his name. His name has meaning and it has power. This is the greatest God of all. And this is the God that we're dealing with. So this is what Paul's showing you. Don't take it for granted. Do not take it for granted, the amount of power that you have, understanding your true identity and what you can do for our God the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Just by your very faith. If you don't believe in the God of Israel, how do you expect someone else to? If you are calling yabba dabba doo, as Elder Michael would say, how are you going to help people to come back home? As a matter of fact, you're leading them astray. That's detrimental. Not to just them, but to your own spirituality. For if the first fruit be holy, the lump is also holy. So we're going to bring this down to an area where we can actually understand. You know, especially if we have those gardeners in the house. Do we have any gardeners in the house? All right, yes, there we have it. Elder Elvis is sitting there. So you're gonna confirm every time I say something. You're gonna say yes, right? Yeah, I need those thumbs. Any gardeners in the house online in Zoom? Oh, sorry, YouTube world. You put your sevens in the chat if you understand how these work, because it's really quite incredible. Really quite incredible. It says here, if the first fruit be holy, the lump is also holy. That's Israel. And if the root be holy, so are the branches. Israel, right? This is all about Israel. The root, the fruit, the branches, all Israel. And if some of the branches be broken off, as it has happened and will probably continue to happen, but if some of the branches be broken off, and thou, now this is where you have to understand there is a difference between Israel and the Gentiles. Because you can't be a Gentile and say that you are Israel, because, you know, if you understand this book, then, and you are part of this nation, and you are breaking bread with us and keeping the laws, the statutes and commandments, you have to, you forgo that. You forgo that identity. You become Israel. And if some of the branches be broken off, and thou, Gentile, be a wild olive tree, and were grafted in among them, with them, and partaketh of the root and the fatness of the olive oil, of the olive tree. So if you're part of this now, you're part of this family, right, Elvis, Elder Elvis, right? Yes, that makes sense, right? So it's grafted in, right? I don't know how they do it. They sply, yeah, some strange, yeah. Okay, so you're grafted in. That's the bottom line. So you're grafted in. Boast not against the branches, especially those that's been broken off. Don't fill up yourself. Oh, look at me. I've been grafted in. I must be better than everybody. No, do not boast yourself against the branches. But if thou boast, thou bearest not the root, but the root thee. You don't really bear the root. Thou wilt say then, the branches were broken off, that I might be grafted in. Well, because remember, Israel is living by faith, pretty much, right? If you're grafted in, then you're leading towards that. You're leading towards living by faith as well. And faith comes with the belief that we have in our Father, the God of Israel. And faith comes in the belief in all the things that have taken place, the historical things that took place during the time of Adam, of, you know, Abraham, Sarah. There's a belief there. But because you're grafted in and you're boasting of yourself, you really don't understand what's happening here. You really don't. Because it says here, because of unbelief, they were broken off. Because they didn't have the faith. Israel, you know, could you imagine? Israel didn't have the faith. Oh my goodness, that's a crime in itself to say those two words in one sentence. Because of unbelief they were broken off, and thou standeth by faith. So now you stand by faith because you're grafted in. Be not high-minded, but fear. For if God spared not the natural branches, take heed lest he also spare not thee. So, if they could be punished, you could be punished too. Bottom line. Am I right, Elder Elvis? Okay. I just need a confirmation there. I just wanted to make sure. Behold, therefore, the goodness and severity of God on them which fell, severity, but towards thee goodness, if thou continue in his goodness, otherwise thou also shalt be cut off. So at the end of the day, we all have our job to do. Every single one of us have our job to do. And they also, if they abide not still in unbelief, shall be grafted in, for God is able to graft them in again. Could you see that? And you know what? This speaks to our current situation. You know, we did some terrible things in our past. I don't need to name them all. The main one being going after other gods. We did some terrible things. You know, we worship Baal and we worship Moloch and all those deities that are nothing. We did all of that. We ran to everybody's gods, and then we were punished because of it. As a nation of people, we were punished. We were cut off. We were broken off. That is quite frightening. But it doesn't have to end there. Could you imagine? It doesn't have to end there because of everything that we've had. You know, my brother, Elder Castrelli, and I, we were talking today, and we were talking about how merciful our God is. How merciful. You know, we take that word for granted. Our God is so merciful. He's compassionate. But in that, we can't take him for granted. Just because he's merciful and compassionate doesn't mean that we have to carry on with our terrible ways. It just means that we have an opportunity. We have a great opportunity today to turn back to our Father. We have a great opportunity to behold the glory of our God, to see his works, to see his miracles, you know, to break bread with each other, to remember what our forefathers have done and what he did for our forefathers. He has great mercy and great compassion. And I think, you know, even after reading stories like the prodigal son, it makes me feel that our God would be most happy, most joyous, most grateful, when he sees his children returning home. This is what I see. Our God would be, he would be, you imagine if you lost something or someone, you know, your child goes away, or, you know, your friend leaves, you know, and they come back. And it's like, wow, I missed you so much in my heart. I missed you. I'm so happy you're home. Now we can come together, we can break bread, we can be brethren, we can be family. You know, this is what the God of Israel is looking at. They can be grafted back in. We can be grafted back in. We are grafted back in right now. You guys, if this is what you want in life, you too can be part of the chosen few. You can be part of the chosen few. Remember, there's never going to be a multitude. The God of Israel works better with a few people. And you have that choice right now. You have that, you know, you can make up your mind today if this is the path that you want to walk. It's not easy. I'm not gonna lie and say, oh yeah, it's a cakewalk. No. It is not easy. But it is possible, and you would have the best life ever. The best, because identity is the most powerful aspect of our lives. Knowing who we are and who we serve. That is the most powerful aspect. Okay, so he's able to graft them in again. For if thou wert cut out of the olive tree which is wild by nature, and wert grafted contrary to nature into a good olive tree, how much more shall these which be the natural branches be grafted into their own olive tree? For I would not, brethren, that ye would be ignorant of this mystery, lest ye should be wise in your own conceit, that blindness in part is happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles come in. This is my time. You know, I had so many scriptures here that I wanted to go through, but when I presented today, I hope you have an appreciation for, because right now we've got our CEC, Chairman of the Executive Council, coming up next, our very own Elder Andel, and he is going to put this all together and bring you to another level. And I hope you are all prepared for this, because it's going to be fantastic. So hold tight and we'll be right back. Thank you.
Hello. I hope you are enjoying our program so far. We are so thrilled you have decided to join us for today's event. If this is your first time, go ahead and hit that subscription button, and don't forget to click the notification bell so that you can stay up to date on all of our upcoming videos. Also, please like, comment, and share our videos. We truly appreciate it. We are so passionate about sharing our Israelite culture, and we welcome your generosity in helping us to reach more people. So please feel free to leave us donations. If you are thinking about joining us and would like to learn more, fill out the form in the description below, and one of our team members from the Welcome Committee will be in contact with you shortly. I thank you for your time and look forward to seeing you soon. And with that, I bid you peace, love, truth, prosperity, and power.
This is a thrill to share the stage and the podium with Officer Charmaine. She is world famous for the show that her and the other professor does, which is History Meets the Bible. So this is one of my bucket lists, guys, is to be on the same stage and the same podium with Officer Charmaine. It's an incredible achievement. Let me say this quickly, and I'm talking to you at home and wherever you may be. I'm up here to remind you, those of you who belong to the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries, those of you who are out there hanging on to the skirts of the Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries, I need to remind you of your worth. I understand there is a fear of recession right now. I understand, I do, because I also live in this world, that gas prices are shooting through the roof. Food prices are shooting through the roof. Some people, I've been told, and I said this when I hung with you guys on Instagram this week, some people are taking their keys to their homes. They're going to the bank and say, here you go. Here you go. We have walked away from our home because we can't afford it anymore. So guess what? Penalize me how you want to penalize me, but I'm not living there anymore. Here's the keys. You guys do what you need to do. We've heard some people take their car keys, bring it back to the dealership. Can't afford the monthly payment any longer. Take the car. I'm not driving it anymore. I'm going to take the bus, going to take the Uber, whatever I need to do, but I can't afford it. I'm here to talk to you personally, because you and I both know that the times doesn't seem to be getting any better, at least for now. What are we dealing with today, ladies and gentlemen? We're dealing with this verse that's in Isaiah 19. The burden of Egypt. Behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst thereof. You know, before I come up on stage and I do what I do, I'm usually talking to some super smart people in this nation before I come up. And there's lots of discussions that happen that help me form what my message is going to be at this very hour. And we were talking about the heart of Egypt, meaning that important organ that propels and drives everything within the body. So if you want to look at the heart, we're talking about the political power. We're talking about the spiritual power of Egypt. And we're not talking about old Egypt, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about the most powerful country on the planet right now. So you figure it out. That heart shall melt in the midst. How is it going to melt? You take people that were enslaved. And if I told you were enslaved, and I say that one day, even the most mighty countries on this earth will pay attention to you, you may say that's an impossible thing, Mr. Elder Andel. If I say to you, because you were dragged, beaten, whipped, like Officer Charmaine said, and brought into this place, and if I said to you one day, those of you who belong to the Israelite nation, Worldwide Ministries, I'm going to be really specific, and those of you who are holding on to the skirts, that the nations will one day, and I'm not going to, you know what, I'm going to take a step back. I keep saying one day, pardon me. One day soon. Why do I say one day soon? 1619 to 2019 is the 400-year cycle, ladies and gentlemen. We have graduated. Now we're in this new cycle of judgment and of revelation and of strength and of power and of magnification. And I know, because I just said there's a fear of recession. Gas prices, inflation shooting up. You're wondering, how is it going to be when all these things, there's not only rumors of war, Priest Daniel, but there are wars actually happening. How is it possible that you are telling us meaning the brethren that belongs to the Israelite nation, Worldwide Ministries, that we will be able to change the table? I'm gonna read something to you before I get too carried away. I'm gonna go to 1 Corinthians chapter 1, for those of you who want to follow along, verses 19 to 31. Remember what I'm saying to you. The heart of Egypt shall. That's the key word. Shall melt. It is prophesied. And I don't care how few you think you are. I don't care how poor you think you are. I don't care how heartbroken, dismayed, impoverished you think you are. When Moses was taking a stroll and he walked to the backside of the desert, looking after the flock, it is at that very hour, that very time, he saw the bush. And I'm not talking about a shrub. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not talking about a shrub you see in the movies. When the God of Israel makes his presence, the mountain quake. It says, what ailed thee, O mountains, that you skipped like little rams? What made you? Even at the presence of the Lord, heaven and earth. So when we talk about the bush burnt, we're not talking about a little shrub. You ever seen a forest fire? We're talking about presence. And when Moses looked upon it, he saw that the bush burnt, but it was not consumed. And the voice says, I am now come down. Moses did not have a calendar, ladies and gentlemen, to know that this was going to be the day. In fact, he woke up like he did all other days, and he took care of the flock. You and I do not know the hour nor the time, and it could happen even in the next 5 minutes, that one of us will get a tap on the shoulder and says, it is time. Don't say to me, When are we going to become the fastest growing religion on earth? Do not say to me, oh my brethren, when are we going to become the fastest religion on earth? You heard what Officer Charmaine said, that when they went into the land, they saw the people as grasshoppers. You want to tell me that you're the fastest growing religion and you be like grasshoppers? Good for you, because you have seen that the few chosen by the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob can turn the table around. That is us. That is who we are at the pillar at the border. You may not understand all these things that I'm saying, but I'm here to remind you of your worth. I'm here to say that even though you may see that you only have one loaf of bread and you're saying, Priest Andal, I only got one loaf of bread. How are you saying that someone like me that belonged to the Israelite nation, Worldwide Ministries, when we're only 5 people, can melt the heart of Egypt? 1 Corinthians, I promise you, verses chapter 1, 19 to 31. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and I will bring to nothing the understanding of the prudent. Where is the wise and where is the scribe? Where is the disputer of this world? Question mark. Hath not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? I think you're going to hear a little bit more of the foolish tomorrow at 1 p.m. on our YouTube channel when we talk about the true shape of the earth. And you will hear how those in the world who claim to be wise, God has made them to be foolish. 21, for after that, in the wisdom of God, the world by wisdom knew not God. It pleased God by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe. For the Jews require a sign, and the Greeks seek after wisdom. But we preach Christ crucified, unto the Jews a stumbling block, and unto the Greeks foolishness. But unto them which are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. I'm going somewhere. Wait, wherever you are, just pause, please. Wherever you are, don't even run to the fridge right now. Don't go anywhere. Just wait. Hold on. Because the foolishness of God is wiser than men. And the weakness of God is stronger than men. At God lowest or highest, he's still paramount over everything. For you see your calling, brethren. I'm talking to you. How that not many wise men after the flesh, not many mighty, not many noble they're called. Now, this is no disrespect, guys. When we say that there's not many mighty and many noble called, right? It's no disrespect to people like you and me, so don't feel too bad, right? But it's showing you something. If we call the mighty of the world, they would say it's by their own might that they won this and they got this and they did this. There's no miracle to behold. But you take someone like Priest Andal that came from zero. Typically, 0 plus 0 will always equal 0. But how you take a Priest Andal who was a 0 and I become 1 million? How you take an Elder Brian who came in as a 0 because 0 plus 0 equals 0. But how does Brian become 10 billion? It is only through the mighty right hand of the great God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I'm talking to you because you guys know where your humble beginning is and started from and where you are and how you became who you are. So you could see and testify with all that is in you that it has to be not by myself, because me alone, 0 plus 0 will equal 0. Someone made me who I am. So you can see the work of God's hand through your life. And imagine taking someone who is a 0 and making the heart of Egypt melt. right? How you do that? Because they would only see, there's no way these people that we brought on ships, who Officer Charmaine says that when we got seasick, we threw up on each other. When we had to go to the washroom, we were in chains stuck to each other, so we went right there. When we had diseases and viruses, we were all over each other. When we came, whomever made it to the shore. When we were there and they treated us like lower than cattle, and they auctioned us off, how is the heart of Egypt thinking that these individuals would one day make us melt? But it will happen. And soon. I'm going to keep saying that word, soon. We have no calendar. There's nothing marked. There's no alarm set on my phone to tell me this is going to be the day. But we see true times. They say that the past, somehow there's certain things that are repeated in the future. There's a rhyme and there's a reason. And we look at the past and we can see the track record, if we collect the data, how the God of Israel operated in the old Egypt. And when the time that they should walk through on dry ground came, they didn't have a calendar for that. They didn't set their stopwatch or their smartphones, if they had some back then. They didn't do that to say, hey, this is the day. It was all of a sudden, as Moses turned the corner, boom, everything went fast, 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 fast. We don't know what tomorrow shall bring, but I'll tell you, I'm talking to you, those of you who belong to the Israelite nation, Worldwide Ministries. The time is coming soon with the few, with the one or the two, the one or the two. You don't need to be bragging about the fastest growing religion. We don't care how many grasshoppers are out there. God, few. Verse 27 says, but God had chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. And God had chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty. And the base things of the world and the things which are despised had God chosen. Gideon, he said, the people are yet too many. The people are yet too many. You heard that before I came up here. But don't get the ones that are sophisticated either. The one that lap it by the creek like dogs drink water. Take those. And I'm going to show you how I work. Scripture says the base things of the world and the things which are despised hath God chosen. Yea, and things which are not, to bring to naught things that are, that no flesh shall glorify in his presence. I don't need to even continue that chapter. I think you get the point. The point is, Priest Andal comes up here, and I look out to you guys, and I say, with $5, we're going to build a temple. And you say to me, how are we going to build a temple, Priest Andal? The real estate market is bad. This is bad. The economic conditions are bad. The stock market is crashing. The crypto market is crashing. Financial institutions are bad. They're laying off people. Everything's going crazy. Monkeypox is coming in. COVID is still out there. What are you saying, Priest Andal? I'm saying $5 will turn into 50 million plus, and we will build that temple. That's what I'm saying. That's what I am saying. You know, there is a story I'm going to get into. Let me see how I'm pacing for time here. There is a story I want to get into, and these are stories, Elder Elvis, that are famous stories in this nation. And they're probably repeated over and over and over and over again. So forgive me, I'm going to use some scriptures that you probably have heard 3 million times. But there is a reason I'm going to read these. So pay close attention to the theme that I'm going to stitch throughout the scriptures I'm going to read. All right, it's probably a theme I have not truly highlighted before, me personally. But it's no new revelation. Everything I say on this podium, I've been taught. I have been taught by the greatest teacher on earth, and that is our elder Shadrach. And he has been taught by the greatest teacher that came from above, even the Comforter, the Spirit of truth. So I'm in good company, and you are too, right? So go easy with me here. Daniel chapter 2, you've heard it. You've heard this story, Daniel chapter 2. I talked about it on Instagram, and Lewis reminded me today if I can continue that lesson. I said it's a little different. But on Instagram, I had a good time hanging out with the community, and I talked about this story. And I said, what? And I spoke to Priest Tyrone about this a couple weeks ago. What may these individuals be names that are mentioned in the Bible and set aside? People like Noah, Daniel, and Job. What made them? When we had millions of people that have left Egypt and went into the land of Canaan, and we became like the sand on the seashore in terms of multitude, why only a couple handful of guys have special mentions in the Bible? How could we get to where they are? And I said, when Daniel was positioned with this situation, specifically, when Nebuchadnezzar in his second year of his reign was sleeping, and every night his sleep broke because he had a disturbing dream. Every night his sleep broke till he summons the magician, the sorcerers, the soothsayers, the Chaldeans. And he said, listen to me. I need to find a solution for my problem. I cannot sleep by way of a dream that keeps coming. So do me a favor and tell me the dream and the interpretation thereof. And they stood up. In fact, the voice of the people were the Chaldeans at that time. And they said, O king, live forever. You tell us the dream and we'll surely tell you the interpretation. He says, maybe you did not hear me carefully. So let me take my time. I need you to tell me what I dreamt and the interpretation. And I'm going to give you some motivation. I'm going to give you some motivation. If you don't, I'm going to cut you into pieces. And I'm going to make your houses a dunghill. So that's your motivation. Some of you are saying, what's a dunghill? What's a dunghill, man? You can YouTube this. You check any village that still haven't really gone into being, I don't know, modernized. Thank you. That was a better word that I was going to use. You take any village that's not modernized, and if they have farm animals, and the waste of the farm animals, they have to put somewhere. So they usually scoop it in the same pile, and that pile becomes a hill. So you take the waste. So listen, if you don't tell me the dream and the interpretation, that's your motivation. I'm going to cut you in pieces and make your houses dunghills. All right? The Chaldeans, who were the spokesperson, they said, hey, okay, there hasn't been a request like this on earth ever. And to be honest with you, there is no person on earth that could actually fulfill this. It's an unreasonable request, King. It's unreasonable. The only one or thing that can do this is if the gods themselves come down. The king Nebuchadnezzar didn't budge. It was the second year of reign. He said, listen, I don't... Arioch, you know what my decree is? You oversee my decree. If they cannot tell me my dream and the interpretation, they'll be cut into pieces. Their houses become dunghills. All the wise men, the decree went out, all the wise men should go through this punishment. Daniel heard it because he was actually one of the wise men. So him and his brethren were also included in that decree. But he didn't know what the commotion was. So he says, Arioch, what is the commotion? Arioch says, well, the decree's gone out from the king. He's having a disturbing dream. He called the Chaldeans, the soothsayers, the magicians, the Chaldeans, the wise men, you name it, he's called them all. And he said, basically, I need someone somewhere to tell me what I dreamt and the interpretation thereof. If they don't, cut them into pieces. Daniel didn't say, oh my God, this is terrible. Oh, we're all going to die. We're all going to die. We're all going to die. Why is this so unreasonable? Daniel, very composed, says, do me a favor. He checked his watch. Do me a favor. Tell the king, give me some time. I'll come back and I'll tell him what he dreamt and the interpretation. Daniel went. I keep telling you guys this. You don't need a multitude. I'm talking to you, brethren. You don't. Daniel believed. It's in him. That's why his name he has a special mention. He didn't doubt. He didn't think, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if the God of Israel will give me this. He says, tell the king, just give me time. I will tell him what he dreamt, and I will tell him the interpretation. That's it. Daniel went back to his three brethren, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And he says, guys, here's what I heard. They prayed and they petitioned the greatest God that he will reveal the secret. Then he told Arioch. Arioch ran in quickly to Nebuchadnezzar and says, hey, I found somebody that can tell you what you dreamt and the interpretation thereof. So you understand that whole premise, right? You get it. So Daniel chapter 2, verses 31 to 35. Thou, O king, sawest, and behold, a great image. This great image, pay attention, I'm stitching something here that I haven't highlighted maybe in a long, long time, okay? Whose brightness was excellent, stood before thee, and the form thereof was terrible. This image head was of fine gold. So follow me. You got a head of fine gold, breasts and his arms of silver, his belly and his thighs of brass, and his legs of iron, and his feet of both iron and part clay. I'm not going to go into the interpretation, but I can tell you. It basically meant that the head of gold was Nebuchadnezzar and his kingdom, and all the other pieces from the iron and the clay and the silver was other kingdoms that shall arise after him. But here's the part I need you to pay attention to. Thou sawest till a stone. Nebuchadnezzar, you saw that image until a stone. Nebuchadnezzar, you saw the image of gold. You saw the image of brass. You saw the image of silver. You saw his bellies and his thighs of brass and his legs of iron. And then his feet and his toes were both part iron and clay. You saw a magnificent, great, and a terrible image until you saw say it with me in the chat room, stone. Thou sawest till a stone was cut out without hands, which smote the image upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and brake them into pieces. Then was the iron and the clay and the brass and the silver and the gold broken in pieces. All these great nations you saw, all composed until you saw say it with me in the chat room, until you saw a stone that broke them all into pieces. Then was the iron and the clay and the brass and the silver and the gold broken in pieces together, and became like chaff of the summer threshing floors. And the wind carried them away, that there was no place found for them. Done. And the stone. I'm stitching something here. Work with me, guys. And the stone, the image became a great mountain and filled the whole earth. That stone became a great mountain, and it filled the entire earth. You know how you get a stone that is made without hands? Do you know? Talk to me, guys. Do you know how you get a stone? Yes. If you want to use this as a parable of some sort, you would tell me that obviously the God of Israel, because it's made without hands, is probably a spiritual thing that made the stone. But then I have to ask you, what does the stone, who is the stone? Let's do, who is the stone? And how is it made without hands? If I tell you earthly things and you don't understand it, then this will be difficult for me to get into heavenly things. But let's start with earthly things. If you have flowing water and the water goes over the rock continuously, the water erodes certain parts of the rock, and eventually that piece breaks off. A rock is a larger foundation, and stones are the smaller pieces of a rock. And then you could also smoothen with the continuous flow of water over those pieces. It becomes smooth. It shapes it. It makes it, all without the work of who you think is born of water. Who you think is the precious stone. I'm going to go somewhere. Work with me a little bit as I cut through this. It is the stone that broke down all those kingdoms and became into a mountain and filled the entire earth. I told you the heart of Egypt shall melt by a stone that is made without hands. This Israelite Nation Worldwide Ministries, you need to understand. And I shouldn't say care. Okay, I care. But I don't want to go down the path of woe is me, woe is us. We are just 5 people. We got 10 people watching us. Who cares? Who cares? Power is with the few. And it's going to be very soon that the work of my elder Shadrach, how he built this foundation upon a rock, which is Christ, even the essence and the gospel and the truth and the power and the might and the glory of Christ, that very soon either one born among us, one that will come through the womb, or one that is here right now will show forth that same faith, that unwavering faith that Daniel had, that unwavering faith that David had, that unwavering faith that Joseph had. We do not speak kindly to you, O Nebuchadnezzar, to bow down to your image. I talked to you guys about that on Instagram. 3 boys. I spoke to Elder Michael, the professor, today. I said, it's different. Today we know that they're powerful countries, but they are behind the curtains pulling strings. But back then, when you talked about the Roman Empire, you saw it in your face. You saw the array of power. When we talked about old Egypt, you saw Pharaoh on his throne. You saw the glory of Egypt in your face. When you talked about Babylon and Nebuchadnezzar, it wasn't behind curtains that they were pulling strings with their power. Their might and their glory resonated in the entire earth for all to see. And when they said, Daniel, or Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you bow down to the image. You do well to listening. They say, we are not even watching how we speak to you, because the God up there will deliver us from your hands if need be. You know what kind of disrespect that is for a king like Nebuchadnezzar, sitting on his throne in the courts of all his renowned men and soldiers. I mean, these guys could have killed them and beheaded them on the spot. They said, we are not watching what we say, and we are not bowing to no image, because we serve the great God, and he can save us from your hands too, should he choose to. Disrespect. Put them in the furnace, and not just the furnace, crank it up 7 times harder, because that's the disrespect that I have, and that's the fury that I have. Crank it up 7 times harder. They didn't hold on to the garments of Nebuchadnezzar, screaming and crying, oh, we plead for our life. We're so sorry for what we did. Please help us. Help us. Please forgive us. They did not. They were taken away as cool and as calm and as composed, because there was a belief system in there that we serve he who sits on the highest throne, even the God of Israel. They went in, they got shoved in. They were eating a mango, I think, as they were sitting in the midst of the flames. They were peeling a mango and eating a mango. And someone else joined them to continue the feast and eat a mango. They were cool. When they came out, no smoke on their garments, no trace. When can we get there? Because we have it within us. When can you and I get there? That we don't double think. Do you think the God of Israel will help me? Do you think he would? Do you think? When would we get there to say, I know my God will do this for me and my people, without even wavering? The minute that we get there, the heart of Egypt shall melt in the mist. This is what I'm saying to you. I don't even know what scripture I'm at. But let's jump to, I got 25 on the clock. Let's jump over to Joshua. We always talk about the Red Sea going through. But there was Jordan, an exact replica of what took place at the Red Sea. They walked through Jordan on dry ground. On dry ground. But remember I told you I'm stitching something together, right? Some of these things you would have heard a million times, but maybe I have not highlighted it in a long while. Here we go. Joshua chapter 4. And it came to pass when all the people were clean, passed over Jordan. So they have gone through Jordan. The feet of the priest that was holding the Ark of the Covenant, as soon as it touched the first step on the water of Jordan, the river parted like the Red Sea did. And the ground became dry till you can pick it up and blow it. And when the people had gone way over, an instruction came from God. And it came to pass when all the people were clean, passed over Jordan, that the Lord spake unto Joshua, saying, Take you 12 men out of the people, out of every man, a tribe, out of every tribe of man, and command you them, saying, Take you hence out of the midst of Jordan, out of the place where the priest's feet stood firm, 12, finish it for me, stones. Why is the God of Israel commanding Joshua to take one person from each tribe and prepare them first, and they go where the priests are with the Ark of the Covenant and take 12 stones? Where are the stones coming from? Remember I told you something about, I did a symbol like that? Water. Take the stones, 12 of them. And he's going to tell you why. And you shall carry them over with you and leave them in the lodging place where you shall lodge this night. Then Joshua called the 12 men whom he had prepared of the children of Israel out of every tribe a man. And Joshua said unto them, Pass over before the ark of the Lord your God into the midst of Jordan, and take you up every man a stone upon his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the children of Israel, that this may be a sign among you, that when your children ask their fathers to time to come, saying, What mean you by these stones? Then you shall answer them that the waters of Jordan were cut off before the ark, so it parted. Before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, when it passed over Jordan, the waters of Jordan were cut off. And these stones shall be a memorial unto the children of Israel forever. You want me to summarize that? I'll tell you. So your children would know that Israel, the 12 stones, Israel came through Jordan on dry ground. That's what that means. When you see these stones, you will know that Israel came through Jordan on dry ground. Coming out of that stone refined from the water. You've got to remember this. I'm stitching something together. I want you to stay wherever you are right now and don't move. I'm going somewhere. And Joshua, verse 9, set up 12 stones in the midst of Jordan, in the place where the feet of the priests which bear the ark of the covenant stood. And there they are unto this day. For the priests which bear the ark stood in the midst of Jordan until everything was finished that the Lord commanded Joshua to speak unto the people according to all that Moses commanded Joshua. And the people hasted to pass over. And it came to pass when all the people were clean passed over, that the ark of the Lord passed over, and the priests in the presence of the people. And the children of Reuben and the children of Gad and half the tribe of Manasseh passed over, armed before the children of Israel, as Moses spake unto them. About 40,000 prepared for war. I mean, some extraordinary numbers. 40,000 prepared for war passed over before the Lord unto battle to the plains of Jericho. I can keep reading, but Joshua had set up. I want to talk to you again. I have a lot more to read, but I'm going to stop reading because I want to talk to you. Joshua took 12 stones, each stone representing a tribe of the children of Israel. You saw when Daniel told the king the dream that what was the element or the object that destroyed all the kingdoms, smashed them into pieces. It was a stone that was cut out without hands. You take 12 stones in the midst of Jordan and set it up at Gilgal. So when the children should ask you, what mean you by these stones? You shall say what? That God of Israel parted Jordan and brought forth the people out of that river on dry ground. You see the stones, you know it's Israel. And those stones weren't, especially those ones in Jordan, they were formed and fashioned by flowing water. Flowing water. I want to get to another place. We talk about David all the time, do we not? Some people say, I'm going to be just like David. Some people say, I'm like David. Some people say, I am David. Thank you. David has a special mention, and there's many, many reasons why. Many reasons why someone like David has a special mention. But Officer Charmaine talked about it. The story of David and Goliath has become a famous story throughout the world. In fact, if we ask someone to do a lesson and they're new, the first lesson they're probably going to do is on faith. And they're going to use the fiery furnace that I just talked about in David and Goliath, right? But there's things that I need to highlight that, again, I haven't been doing maybe a fine job in highlighting these elements through these stories. Our elder has taught us that the flesh that you see here is technically dead without the spirit. Without the spirit, what you see here is just meat, food for the worms. You believe it or not, it's up to you. When a man says, I defy the armies of the children of Israel, when those words are sounded, remove the giant from the story. I need you to do that for me right now. Remove the giant. When those words are sounded, I defy the armies of the children of Israel. Remove the giant and just listen to the words. You defy the armies of the children of Israel. You, whoever is speaking, you believe that we are, because we are few, we're insignificant. Because partly, the majority of our population are shepherds. We're insignificant. You believe because you have the might and the power of the earth in your hands, that you can speak to my people in such a fashion because you do not see us coming. You, the words coming out of the mouth, I'm removing the giant from this story and just focus on the words, because the words is coming from the spirit within the man. And the spirit embodies the entire earth at that present time and looks at my people and says, I defy you. The same words they use today because they don't see you and I as anything significant. But it's not the flesh that doesn't see us as significant. It is that old time. Almost like the vampire stories. They go from generation to generation. They pick up and they leave. When one kingdom goes down, they flap like bats and they go to another kingdom and set up shop. And when that kingdom gets down, they flap like bats and they go to another. And throughout the ages, it's the same bats. It's the same. And they look to you and I with all the pomp because they drink the waters of the earth. And they say, there's no way. I defy the armies of Israel. Just think of it. I'm walking you through this. Remove the giant and think of the words that are being sounded and see where that's coming from. 1 Samuel 17, verse 34 says, And David said unto Saul, Thy servant kept his father's sheep. And there was a lion and a bear and a lamb, and they took it out of the flock. And I went out after him and smote him and delivered him out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard, and I smote and I slew him. And thy servant, King Saul, slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine. I need to pause there for a second. Don't look at the giant. David heard the words. David understood. It's time that I make the heart of our enemies melt. It is time that I make the heart of our enemies to melt. It is time. All my people fear, but it is time that I make the enemies of my people to shake and to melt. And I'm going to show you how I do this. This uncircumcised Philistine, who is representing the words and the embodiment of all the powers of this earth coming against the few, he does not know what is about to go down. David said, Moreover, the Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. He didn't cry like his brothers were. He didn't shiver and quake. It was definitive what he said. When can we get there? When could we get to that stage to be definitive? God will deliver me out of his hands. Not, oh God, I pray whatever I said, you back me up. God will deliver me. I'm talking to you, my brethren. Though we are 3 or 4, we're not like grasshoppers like the other nations. We're not the fastest growing so-called religion in the earth. You got about 3 or 4 of us, but don't let that, do not let that make you quiver and shake and say, Presanda, what are we going to have 1 million of us? There are more with us than those that be with them. You've heard this before. There are more with us right now. Right now. They have surrounded all the mountains. They're just waiting for one amongst us to say, it is time. And I believe it will happen. Doesn't matter if the world is rocking to and fro, no matter how much hurricanes and all these things are taking place. We are the people of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Don't wait for him to hold you, I told you on Instagram this week. Days are long gone. You keep depending on God to hold you in place. It is time you take both your hands and give him a beer hug and say, Father, I'm not letting you go. I am not letting you go. It's time we do that. And I guarantee you, I don't know if it's going to happen in 5 minutes. I don't know if it's going to happen tomorrow or next week, but it's going to happen soon, that the power structure of this world would recognize our God and recognize who we are. I promise you this. For this is written. Elder taught us this years ago by his reading of Isaiah 19. And I hope to God one day he'll be right here on this podium and he'll walk us through Isaiah 19 on a recorded video, because you need to hear that. Thy servant slew both the lion and the bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he had defied the armies of the living God. Seen or unseen, your words that came out of you, being just a fleshy man, those words were spirit, and you have defied the seen and the unseen of the armies of the living God. That goes with a penalty. David said, moreover, the Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion, out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said unto David, go, and the Lord be with thee. And Saul armed David. Pay close attention, I'm going somewhere. Saul armed David with armor and put helmet of brass upon his head. And he also armed him with a coat of mail. It's like, I got this suit from Priest Tyrone, and it's like the jacket is twice my size. So I'm swimming in this suit, right? If I came out then, you saw me, the pants is long, and I got a double loop belt, and the jacket is too big on me, right? It's made for Tyrone. When David put on whatever it was, he's like, this, I can't, I haven't proved this. And David girded his sword upon his armor and essayed to go, for he had not proved it. And David said unto Saul, I can't go with these, man, for I've not proved them. And David put them off him. What did we talk about earlier? Let's go back quickly to that. But God had chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. And God had chosen the weak things of the world to confound the things which are mighty, and the base things of the world. And the things which are despised had God chosen, yea, the things which are not, to bring to naught things that are. David is coming out, you're young, you're not experienced, and you don't even have on a soldier's outfit. How much more weaker in appearance can this be? Think. I can't even go with a sword. I'm not even going out there with a sword, guys, or a staff, or a spear, or bow and arrow. I am going out in just my shepherd's outfit that I was with the sheep 2 hours ago. You're going out against them. They're all camped. They're all camped out like grasshoppers. And they got a giant representing them. But don't look at the numbers, just hear the words that were said. And you got to understand, this is spirit versus spirit. You've got to understand that. But here it is. Here it is. 40. And he took his staff in his hands and chose him 5 smooth, say it with me, stones. But here's what you probably I needed to highlight for you. And he took his staff in his hand and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook. Whoa! He didn't pick it up from the back of his house. He took his hands, put it into a natural stream. That's a brook, a natural flowing stream. And he took out 5 smooth stones. I'm telling you, man, if you don't see the power in not only the symbolism, if you don't understand that we are the stones made without hands, that this guy and the world needs to know that we're putting their kingdom and melting their heart right now. And I'm going to use what represents Israel, stones made without hands. Because I could have picked up anything, but I went to the brook, natural river flowing, lively waters, by the way, not a stagnant pool, lively, flowing waters. He rolled up and he put his hands into the water and he took out smooth stones. Why are they smooth? I told you, the waters flowing over them continuously mold them, fashion them, and mold them and make them smooth. He took 5 smooth stones. Here we go. He took smooth stones out of the brook and put them in a shepherd's bag, which he had, even in a script. And his sling was in his hands, and he drew near to the Philistine. And the Philistine came out and drew near unto David. And the man that bare the shield went before him. David didn't even have an arm bearer. I mean, this Philistine's coming, this giant's coming with an armor bearer also. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth and ruddy and of a fair countenance. And the Philistine said unto David, Am I a dog that thou comest to me with staffs? And the Philistine cursed David by his God's spirit. Remember I told you, don't worry about the giant. Listen to the words that he is quickened to speak on behalf of those that drink the waters of the earth, those that their footstep raises up the dust of the ground. They are in their own ego mighty. No nation can defy them. But when David heard those words, the Spirit moved in David. It says, you don't defy the armies of God, the living God. You do not do that. And how I'm going to break you down and melt your heart in the midst of you, I'm going to show you. I'm going to take smooth stones out of the living water, which represents my people, Israel. And the Philistine said unto David, Come to me, and I will give thy flesh unto the fowls of the air and to the beasts of the field. Then said David to the Philistine, Thou comest with the sword and with the spear and with the shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts. I got 3 minutes with you. Bear with me. The God of the armies of Israel, which thou hast defied. This day will the Lord deliver thee into mine hand, and I will smite thee, and I will take thy head from thee, and I will give thy carcass to the hosts of the Philistines this day, unto the fowls of the air, and the wild beasts of the earth, and the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. And all of the assembly shall know that the Lord saveth not by sword, nor by spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and I will give it into our hands. And it came to pass when the Philistine arose and came and drew nigh to meet David, that David hasted and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag and took thence a stone. And he wound it and wound it and wound it and wound and smote the Philistine right there, where the essence of spirituality comes, right in the middle. Bang! And David put his hand in his bag and took thence a stone, slang it, smote the Philistine in his forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon the face of the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with the sling and the stone. When I say to you, in my last words with you, whoever you are that belongs to this Israelite nation worldwide ministries, shake yourself. Don't worry about what you see around you. go, like my elder says, on your knees, lift up your hands to the holy heavens, and call upon the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Believe me, the heart of Egypt shall melt, and it will melt soon. And it will come. It will permeate from this nation. We shall shake the earth. I promise you this, for it is written, the prophets have prophesied this. This is the time. So when I say to you, we take $5 in this hard economic times and we turn it to 50 million to build a temple of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you should be down with that. When I say to you that among us somewhere, whether it is right now, someone to be born or someone to come, they will shake the very foundation of the heart. Those who are sitting in the seats of power shall recognize that there is a God that liveth, and he's the God of Israel, and that we are his people. It will come soon. Great signs and wonders will come from this nation that the world hath not seen since the days of our forefathers. I promise you that. With that being said, I thank you so much for your time. I thank you for not going to the fridge or walking your dog or cutting the claws of your cat while I was teaching, and spending that 2 hours with us. Like, share, and if you are new to the channel, click on that subscribe button right now. And with that, I say peace, love, truth, prosperity, and power be unto you and to your family. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one.